Hey guys, it's Mathil here once again, and today I want to show you my attempt at making an Oni-Goroshi character, the new sword that has just been reworked, which was the old Goddess Unleashed, now just the unique Charon sword, and it's got quite a lot of crit, quite a lot of fizz, and then a really nifty buff, which gives you a bunch of extra fire damage. So basically, long story short, I'm going to go ahead and say, you can do just about anything with this sword. My attempt here is Infernal Blow, because I've been dying to play a bit of Infernal Blow on some character for the past few months now, and Ancestral Call plus this sword has just basically given me that opportunity to go pretty hard with some Infernal Blow action. But as I'm saying, I think you can do just about any sword attack skill with this weapon, because it's just a really nice crit sword with a bunch of flat fizz and then a bunch of fire. So you can go just about anything, I think. Reave, Lacerate, Flicker Strike, a bunch of different melee splash, Ancestral Call skills. Molten Strike is an obvious single target choice. Blade Flurry is a very obvious single target choice. You can Spectral Throw, Frost Blades, Lightning Strike. You can do whatever you want, is what I'm trying to say. So do not be pigeonholed into this sword thinking, gee, can I do this? Gee, he's doing that. Maybe I can't do a different skill. Doesn't matter. You can use anything, I think. It's just a nice crit sword base. The thing that really does limit you is how you deal with the debuff, because with the sword, when you ignite something, and if you want to take advantage of the large amount of fire damage it has from her blessing, when you ignite something, you will be taking 0.5% life degen per second per level of your character. So if you have a level 90 character, you have 45% life being degened a second of pure fire damage. Now you have to bear in mind that that does get negated by fire resist. So it's absolute base. If you have capped fire resist, that means 3/4 of that damage won't exist. So instead of 45, you're looking at more like 11% or 12% damage per second. You can then start to negate through life regen mechanics. You can negate through other fire resistance, max fire resist, elemental damage reduction, all that sort of stuff. Or you can just pick a Slayer as I have here. Now Slayer is just going to be probably the easiest, most comfortable and just base starting choice for this sword, I think. With the vast amount of overleach you get from the sword, you can just jump from pack to pack without really worrying about the damage, and for the most part you probably won't ever actually feel the degen. It just means that your overall life leech and life regen is going to feel a little slower than usual. I mean, that really doesn't feel like anything to me. At this stage, I've been leveling with my Slayer Overleach up till level 80, been using Blood Rage as well for another 4% of a degen, and for the most part, I never actually feel this degen, and even when I take plenty of damage, recovering life is pretty damn easy. And I still don't even have my last Slayer Ascendancy, which is another 100% increased life leech rate, so I think Slayer is probably the easiest choice to build around this sword and its negative effect. But like I said, I think you can do plenty of other choices if you really think you want to. I just didn't really want to have to worry about all of that, and Slayer just is pretty damn good right now, so I figured I'd jump right into that. So I want to show you what this sword is and how I've built thus far. Right, so the character is currently level 81. It's a Slayer, as I said, and I did mention why would you farm this as my character name, because you can certainly farm it yourself, but currently it's really not worth the cost. It should take you, from all accounts, something like 4 to 8 hours farming Hillock with level 1 characters, or level 1 to 7 characters, just grinding over and over, and eventually you'll get the sword and it is worth something like 50C, maybe up to 100C, depending on what's going to happen with the price after some builds come out. But yeah, I just don't think it's really that worth it, so I just went ahead and bought it. But you can definitely farm it yourself. I'll show you that in just a second. The sword here itself is just bunch of fizz damage eventually when you level, her embrace when you ignite an enemy, and then taking damage from her embrace. The only actual variable is crit, goes from 70 to 90, so you do want a high crit chance. And if you want to see what her embrace is and all that, just hold Alt over the sword and it will show you what you get for it. So you get quite a few little nifty buffs, but the most important one is 123% of sword physical damage gained as extra fire damage. So all in all, when you get like a level 90 character, you will have about 180 to 270 additional physical, so it becomes a pretty damn nice physical weapon, especially with the large amount of crit. And then on top of that, you get the 123% of fizz as added fire damage. On top of that, just it's not going to be shown in your tooltip most of the time unless you get the actual buff happening. So it says when you ignite an enemy, and for us that's whenever we crit at the moment, because you know, I have some fire damage. You crit, you're going to do some ignite, and that means you will get her blessing. It's a 3-second buff, and it does, like I said, degen you. Now, just to give you a quick example, this is my character plugged into the path of building, something like 600, 700k Infernal Blow at the moment, and the DPS of the sword obviously doesn't really have anything right now. But if you try to replace it with a jeweled foil of 370 physical damage, decent attack speed, a really good crit, one of these things are going to cost you 10 exalts. Same damage, so it's roughly 375 Fizz DPS worth in the exact same character build. Of course, you would build slightly differently with a weapon like this because you'd be much more Fizz based. You might not at all go Infernal Blow, or you'd have to go 100% conversion. Whereas right now I'm kind of like 50-50 and all that, and I've got just some pretty weird stuff happening on the passive tree, I'd say. But for the most part, still basically just a physical sword crit build. So you can see that it is a very powerful weapon at the higher levels, and this is with Infernal Blow, some pretty good damage. You can just do a whole bunch of different stuff. Blade Flurry, we're looking at like 1.5 million with a 6 link and a bunch of different stuff. I'll go into that in a second. But basically, it is a really nice starting, just set it and forget it sword if you pick a Slayer, for example, because the Slayer Overleach is really nice, and I think it's the best way to deal with the degen of the sword, because the primary factor is life leech effects are not removed at full life. When you kill a pack and you still have her blessing on you, you don't want to just start tanking life because you're not attacking anything. With Endless Hunger, that means you will just keep regenning basically and never really go into a deficit. Pair it with Vile Pact, pair it with Brutal Fervor, and you're still going to be just tanky as ever and completely negating that effect. Even with 75 or 76 fire resist at the moment, it won't really be a problem. So then the only other real thing to discuss about the sword, because like I said, you can do just about any skill, just about any ascendancy, depending on how you want to really negate the effect, though I think Slayer is probably the most obvious one. The only other thing is how to really scale the damage. It does do a bunch of extra, fizz, so it is basically a fizz sword, but it does also have that large amount of extra fire from your fizz. So in the end, it kind of ends up being similar to what a Doomfletch would be. You want plenty of flat fizz and you want plenty of elemental damage to attacks. So something like this over here is not too bad at all. You got plenty of flat fizz because it is very important to then get onto your actual sword, and then also to have something extra to convert the fire off of, or to add the extra fire off of. And then you also want elemental damage to attacks, with attack skills, to actually scale that extra fire damage. So all in all, you kind of want both. So it's very similar to a Doomfletch, where the minimum is going to be pretty minimum on damage, but the maximum is going to be pretty damn huge if you have the right gear. So an amulet like this with just some flat fizz, some good fire damage, some crit multi, it's going to be completely huge for our build. I can give you the example right here. So pretend that 21 fire damage is 21 elemental damage to attacks instead. So you got your 30 crit multi, you got your 21 elemental damage, you got your flat fizz. With our current, let's just even have a look at Blade Flurry, even though I'm not using it, it's just a simulation. 1.5 Blade Flurry billion DPS. Take off the amulet, and you're missing 200,000 damage, 300 even. It's completely ridiculous how much flat fizz and elemental damage to attacks is going to work. Though, that said, you can still do plenty of other things, just like regular elemental damage to attacks, or just regular fizz. Don't have to combine the two. Or just a bit of flat fire damage, like my Abyssal Jewels here. Getting flat fizz is actually kind of hard on jewels, especially in any good quantity. It's fairly low amount, and people do value it highly. The jewels like these are like 5 to 20C, whereas the fizz ones cost a lot more. So just a bit of fire damage still goes a long way in this type of stuff. But ideally, you do want fizz and then some elemental damage to attacks. So I won't fully go over all my gear and all that. That'll probably come in another video. I am running a Darkness Enthroned with a couple of jewels. Some pretty basic stuff. I will link it all. You can have a look at it. My current Infernal Blow links, however, are Infernal Blow and then Ancestral Call. Those are pretty damn important so that you can actually feel good using Infernal Blow to clear. multi-strike, elemental damage with attacks, melee fizz, and damage on full life. So it's a lot of crazy multipliers, and it does mean you will hit really hard. And on top of that, I have taken impact in this character because I think it's worth it in this case. I don't really necessarily need headsman anymore since reflect damage doesn't really matter. 20% more if you've killed recently is absolutely fantastic and will be beneficial most of the time. Not that good against bosses, obviously, unless you actually use a worm flask or some other shenanigans. But impact, I think, is just very worth it. Basically gives us a 7th link at this stage for our Infernal Blow, and I think that's just worth for clear. And if I want to just be pure Infernal Blow, I think that's a quality of life I could not avoid. So my last 2 points will go up here, and that will be a bit different to how I've normally done Slayers. But you can by all means use any sort of skill you want. Don't have to do impact and melee splash stuff. Just Blade Flurry, just Reeve, just whatever you want, and it should be a pretty damn good character. And on top of that, I'm currently using Star Conjures, but I do think Abyssus is probably too nice to pass up on. I just didn't want to go that route because it's going to be a bit tough if you're not very experienced with building these characters to also chuck Abyssus in and have to balance all the resists and everything. But I can give you the simulation. Basically, here's our DPS. You chuck on an Abyssus and all of a sudden it's going to be at least 50% extra damage. So long story short, it absolutely has to be worth it to put an Abyssus in and then balance the rest of your character around a bit more resist, life, armor, all of that. Should be worth it, but for this stage, I think unless you actually need that damage, and I don't think I do, Star Conjures I think will carry me to good enough damage lengths, then I'm just going to stick with the lesser damage option and more defensive option of a Star Conjure. Now, the only other thing I really want to mention for you guys is the actual wiki of the sword itself. So it's over here. You can see all the information there, and it does tell you how to basically farm it. If you want to farm it, you just go start a level 1 character, you kill Hillock, do not enter the town because then you won't be able to come back out and kill Hillock ever again. Just kill Hillock, log out, and then you come back in on your character about a minute later when the zone is reset, and you can kill Hillock again. Apparently, you do need to hit level 7 to see the Hillock that will be holding this sword spawn. So after you've hit level 7, you then can start running into Hillocks that glow a bit green and potentially even hold the sword. At that point, you'll know you've come across the right Hillock, you'll kill him and he'll guarantee you drop this sword. You do have to grind the Twilight Strand up until level 7. You do have to probably make a few characters because there's your Hillock, because it just makes the rotation a bit easier to wait for your resets. You grind a few characters up to level 7 through Twilight Strand, kill Hillock, log on to the next one, kill Hillock, log on to the next, so on and so forth. And yeah, it should, from current accounts, take you 4 to 8 hours to basically farm this thing, depending on your RNG. I don't think that's worth it. If you want to solo self-found it, go right ahead and do it. It is a guaranteed 6 link. Whenever you do get it dropped, so that takes care of the 6 link business, meaning you can run a Combs if you really want, or just a 5 link War Chief like I currently do. I'd say that's enough information about this shit for now, guys. Go out there, test it yourself if you really want. I'm currently building Infernal Blow, and I will hopefully have another update for you in a few days. Got a couple of races coming up in real life for athletics tomorrow and the day after, so I may be a little bit stressed on playtime and a little bit more wiped out. I'll see if I can still get the right streams and videos up for you as per usual. But until then, guys, hope you had a good Christmas and Happy New Year if I don't see you till then. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.